Welcome back to the RX SportsFlex on rxmuscle.com. I'm your host, Siddique Farooqi. Glad you can join us on this Tuesday night. Ronnie Coleman on the show, Lonnie Teeper, and Brian Harris, but we are now pleased to be joined from the New York Lizards of Major League Lacrosse. They call him the Beast. And we are joined by Greg Gurenlian. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Greg, so you play for the New York Lizards of Major League Lacrosse. How are the Lizards doing? We're towards the stretch run now, heading into the playoffs. How are the Lizards looking?
I think we're at our peak right now. And, as we're going through the season, we've been getting better and better. I think the chemistry is just right. I think the offense is starting to move. I know personally I'm finding my groove. So I think things are looking really good going into the playoffs.
Greg, now we've seen lacrosse in this country really start to take some leaps, and Major League Lacrosse has been a big reason for that. Tell us about the role that Major League Lacrosse has played in the overall development of lacrosse and the promotion of lacrosse in this country.
Well, I think Major League Lacrosse has done about as much, if not more than anyone, as far as the spreading of the game. When it came about in the early 2000s, it was seen as kind of a glorified summer league, and it was finally a place for the best players on earth to play after they got out of college, but it wasn't taken that seriously, and the reasons for it were the innovations. Major League Lacrosse wanted to take the talents of the players and kind of send it out to the mainstream world. So they added a 2-point line. They added the shot clock. They also made it's a more physical game than the college game. So, people at first kind of thought, I don't know how long this is going to last. And now we fast forward to 2014, and we're seeing the college game trying to adapt all the rules that the MLL has. So I think the innovations have been very cutting edge, and I think they've done a great job. I know when there were teams, when I used to play for the San Francisco Dragons, when that was a team out in California, you saw lacrosse explode in California. And now today, California has more lacrosse players in it than any other state in the country. And I think that had everything to do with two teams being out there. So I think you're seeing Major League Lacrosse really change everything.
And Greg, two of the biggest things that I've seen over the last few years, one, some of the marquee college programs, notably University of Michigan, getting a lacrosse program, so you're adding some big-time notoriety. But speaking of notoriety, when I mention this name, people are going to wonder, that guy? Jim Brown, yes, that Jim Brown, a part owner of the New York Lizards, obviously giving the sport a lot of cachet, known mostly as a great, one of the greatest football players of all time. He, too, was a great lacrosse player in his own time. Talk to us about that, about Jim Brown buying into a Major League Lacrosse team and what that means in the grand scheme for the Lizards and for lacrosse in this country.
Well, not only was Jim a lacrosse player, he was considered the best of all time. That's the biggest thing. I think when people saw that Jim Brown bought into our team, I think some people may have thought it was a publicity stunt. But the funny thing about it is, when you talk to Jim Brown, lacrosse is in his heart, and he always says that. He says that lacrosse is a love of his. It'll always be a lifetime love of his. I had the incredible honor of joining him and his wife at the ESPY Awards a couple of years ago.
Sure.
As a guest, and the next day I came over to his house for some brunch, and he's got that Toward Award sitting there. I mean, it's a huge thing of pride, and it's great to have a name like that who actually loves the game, understands the game. And him and I talked lacrosse that morning for about an hour, and it was a great experience. I have the incredible amount of respect for him and his family, and it's huge for the game of lacrosse for someone who's considered probably the best football player of all time to also be considered the best lacrosse player of all time, and for him to come back into Major League Lacrosse and give back to the game.
Yeah, and the Tewaaraton Trophy, for those wondering, that is the Heisman Trophy for college lacrosse. And speaking of college lacrosse, Greg, I don't know how much you followed it this year, but really the big rage in college lacrosse this year were these Native American brothers, the Thompson Brothers, who played for the University at Albany. And you just had the World Championships out in Denver, Colorado, and they had really like a Beatles like following there. Talk to us about that story and really how big is the Native American scene in lacrosse as we go forward.
It's interesting because, American boys see the Thompsons, especially Lyle, they see, these players play the way they do. And to them, it's fancy lacrosse. Some people may think it's showboating. But when you see the players, on the reservation, you see the players playing the box game and stuff, that's just how they play. It's just creative lacrosse. And I think that's where people became enamored with it. I think that's where people really fell in love with it. And you're right. Everybody wanted to see them. Our game against the Iroquois was not only just a packed house, but then they sold seats in the stadium next to it that people would buy seats just so they could get a glimpse of it. And, I'm not sorry that we let people down and it wasn't the game they wanted and we blew them out. But, it was a really cool scene. And I love the fact that they have gotten the following they have and they've been embraced that way. And I'm glad the two brothers won the Thornton Award together. And I think it's a big thing for lacrosse, and I do wish them the best.
Couple of more before we let you go, Greg. Again, we're talking to Greg Gurenlian of the New York Lizards of Major League Lacrosse. What's next for lacrosse? We talk about how far Major League Lacrosse has come. We talk about how far the sport has come in this country. What needs to happen for this to really approach, and I hate this word, but mainstream status? Is it something the way that the game is broadcast? Is it the format of the game? What's the next step in your opinion?
There's kind of a crossroads, right? So from a business model standpoint, you need to pay the players more so that they're more dedicated and they can get more than 1 or 2 practices a week and it becomes a better product. But you need more people in the stands. So, you want to put a better product out there, but you need more people in the stands to sell it. You want more people to come to the game, but you also want a lot more TV coverage. And when there's more TV coverage, there's less people going to the games. So there are a bunch of different catch-22s. I personally feel that in order for the game to grow, we need to have a couple more of the right investors and the right owners. I personally think that the MLS mentality is what should be brought into Major League Lacrosse. I think that you should not have stadiums where teams are at college, playing at college venues. I think that you need to be able to have beer, served. You need to be able to make your own rules as a stadium and be able to have the ownership, have the abilities to do whatever they want on these fields. I think if you can give the ownership the power to do whatever they want in their own stadium, they can make it a much more entertaining atmosphere and get more of the college crowd. I think that's the crowd we're missing. We have 1 million little kids. We have 1 million parents. But I think you need more of the 20-somethings in there. If you can get them into the stands, I think the game can really blow up. Anyone who comes to a Major League Lacrosse game loves it. You can't not love it. It's just getting it out to more of the masses. And I think you got to get it to the right, like the MLS type stadiums. And then I think you'll really see it start to explode.
Greg, tell us about your work with Prove People Wrong and the Face-Off Academy.
Prove People Wrong is just launched today, provepeoplewrong.com. And it's a style brand that we try to promote to basically anyone that can really understand what it's like to be doubted. Whether you're Johnny Manziel or you're just a kid who's trying out for, trumpet in the school band. People are telling us that we can't do things all the time. And I bought into the company as someone who was told that they would never make the varsity team in high school. Starting as a freshman in high school, I never picked a stick up before, and I was told that I was completely wasting my time. So, I think that Prove People Wrong is a brand that anyone can relate to, and we're having a lot of fun with it. We have a really good ownership group together. And the Face-Off Academy is just a passion project that has exploded into a completely different animal. We are doing a lot of work with face-off instruction for face-off lacrosse players, and we've become big in the recruiting circuit, and we're establishing a lot of communication with college coaches, creating pipelines for players, and trying to make it a classier position, trying to get rid of the cheating and teach the game at a high level. Basically, we like the term success with honor, and that's what we're trying to push to our athletes, and it's been extremely successful.
Greg Gurenlian of the New York Lizards of Major League Lacrosse. We thank you for joining us on RX SportsFlex.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to step aside, but when we return, we'll rejoin Ronnie Coleman and Lonnie Teeper, talk Tiger Woods, and talk Ray Rice. You're watching RX SportsFlex on rxmuscle.com.